Chase Senior in the house on a Friday. Chase, what's up, man? How are you?
It's a beautiful Friday. Always love coming on the Krug show for this weekly spot, and for the season to play out the way that it's played out, where I kind of join you at the midway point of the season, and then we've had this playoff run, now this Super Bowl run. We're both going to Las Vegas. We're finally going to be able to meet. I imagine we're both going to make appearances on each other's show. It's awesome. Glad to have the audience here as well. And I'm just so excited for this matchup. Rematch of Super Bowl 54, San Francisco, Kansas City. So many great storylines. And as a football fan, as a football aficionado, this is what you dream about, man.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I so much enjoyed the Niners Super Bowl in New Orleans when they played the Ravens, seemingly a long time ago now.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how good this one's going to be in Las Vegas, the first Super Bowl ever in Las Vegas. I'm excited for that and all the different things that I've got going on that week, and it's going to be fun. All right, so I saw you jumped in on my Twitter.
Yeah.
Which one was it? It was like I was doing a heat check, right?
It was a Krug flex is what people my age would say. You were spot on in your analysis of Brock Purdy, and I think that I was in lockstep with you every step of the way. I thought that in the preseason, Purdy was going to make the 53-man roster. I had said in the lead up to 53-man roster cutdown day, San Francisco has to have Brock Purdy on the 53 because he's too good at an important position where if they do cut him, expecting that he's going to be able to come back to the practice squad, I guarantee you another team's going to scoop him up. Timing, anticipation, processing, accuracy, moxie. I saw it from the jump. You saw it from the jump. And Kyle Shanahan saw it from the get-go. So I think that when you have a victory like that, it's important to let the people know on X. So I had to pop in there, maybe give you some engagement and say, that's a Krug flex. Krug knows ball.
I was flexing there for sure. Okay, so this wouldn't be what it is without there being some subplots. I mean, the Niners, there's never a dull time in Ninerland. I actually retweeted your video version of Chase Young's Cadillacing in the NFC Championship game, and then I asked Kyle about it yesterday. I asked Warner about it yesterday. I asked Bosa about it. Now, I didn't necessarily in any of those situations say Chase Young was dogging. What did you think? It wasn't quite like that because I'm not trying to. I'm rooting hard for the Niners to get this done. I don't want to see this turn into some big soap opera. But the video is so overwhelming and so ridiculous that a player would play at that speed in a game of that magnitude that it had to be a topic.
Right.
What do you think? I mean, now that, I asked Shanahan didn't run from it, man. I thought there was a chance he'd be like, oh, no, that's not what you saw. But he was like, yeah, I think he said guys weren't going on the backside which sounds so benign compared to what you could say. But, he doesn't want to see his whole locker room blow up either over this. But at the same time, he doesn't want to ignore that it's unacceptable. So, what's your read on what we saw there from Chase Young? Is that a Chase Young issue? Is it more than Chase Young? Because Shanahan made it seem like it was others. Kevin Givens didn't seem like he was going super hard on that play. It's almost like everybody thought somebody else was going to make the play, which is, kind of not the right mentality. I'll get a chance to talk to Wilks today. What did you think when you saw Chase Young on that low light, if you will?
Disgusting effort, an awful effort. And this is why a lot of Niner fans are frustrated. And I didn't really realize that it was going to take off as a subject matter as much as it has this week. When I was live for the watch party watching the game and then I saw the replay, I'm looking at Jahmyr Gibbs run to the outside. And it's not just Chase Young who's failing in the pursuit and not giving 100% to get to the ball carrier. Everybody was kind of lollygagging around a little bit. But with Chase Young, you see him clearly not making an effort, not going full go, and he's just trotting to the football, waiting for somebody else to make a play. And then when he is in the vicinity of Jahmyr Gibbs, when you're already down 14-7 in the NFC Championship game, he makes absolutely no effort to try to tackle Jahmyr Gibbs, and he just walks in for the touchdown. And I think when you go back and you listen to the call from Kevin Burkhardt, I thought him and Greg Olsen did a great job on the broadcast in that game, piggybacking off of how they performed in the Super Bowl for Chiefs Eagles last year. I think Kevin Burkhardt was also surprised. He's like, and Gibbs is in. And I just couldn't believe that you could put that lack of effort on tape in an NFC Championship game when you're down. Momentum is with Detroit. You have a great opportunity on the plate for you to punch your ticket to the Super Bowl. And then for Chase Young individually here, I'm a fan of the player. He's really good when he's engaged, but there is a track record here of him having effort issues. When he got traded from Washington to San Francisco, all the buzz from players and his teammates. We're not talking about anonymous NFL executives here. This is coming from his teammates, that the word was out that at points Chase Young would take some time off. And I don't want to hear about the knee injury that he suffered a couple of years ago. He's back to being 100% because he can take over games, and we've seen that in short stints with the Commanders and with San Francisco. But when you have the draft pedigree that you have, number 2 pick in 2020, you win Rookie of the Year on the defensive side of the football. You're an insane athlete at 6'5", 264 pounds, where you just look like a unique physical specimen. You have this ability and potential that's insane. You're in a contract year. It's unacceptable. And then in the second half, to his credit, he made some really good plays against the run. But I thought it was pretty notable how Kyle Shanahan did address it. And it's not really fair to solely point out Chase Young in a press conference setting like that. Now, I talked about it on the show, and it blew up. The video got 75,000 views, and the comment section was on fire. Then I talked about it again yesterday, and the video did well. So Niner fans are very smart. They're very intelligent. They know. Kyle Shanahan knows upon watching the tape that that effort is not acceptable. And for Fred Warner to talk about it, they know it's an issue as well. And my last point here, that type of effort is not going to fly against Kansas City. Not only do you have to get to Patrick Mahomes, you have to get him on the ground, and you're going to have to be full go in your pursuit of him. And if you try to have that type of effort against a player like Isaiah Pacheco, he's going to run through you. He's going to run you over. That's what allows the Chiefs to move the chains. Patrick Mahomes stays on the field, and then your great offense stays on the sideline. So that can't happen in the Super Bowl. And if it does, it's a massive problem. And for Young, you have an opportunity here to get this massive check in free agency. And for me, if I'm looking at the full body of work, 2.5 sacks in 9 games with San Francisco, with 6 quarterback hits, a tackle for a loss, a pass breakup, 10 solo tackles compared to 5 sacks in 7 games with the Commanders on a lesser team. If I'm the Niners and I want to bring Chase Young back, I'm only giving him like a 1-year, $15 million deal. He's got to prove it to me that he can be a long-term option, and that effort doesn't fly with me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen enough already to just say no. I'm not bringing him back next year. Yeah. But I understand if they do at a reasonable dollar figure. I tweeted out my question and answer yesterday, to Shanahan about this. And you're right. I mean, these things are getting lots of traction. I mean, I got 127,000 views of this thing.
Wow.
What do you think? And then, by the way, yesterday at practice, Fred Warner, he always talks to the players, before they break and get into their practice. The discussion went a little bit longer. I saw Matt Barrows tweeted that out, that it was a little bit longer of a conversation between Fred Warner, who basically told us before practice, when we asked him about the run defensive issues, the Niners have given up 5.6 a carry in these 2 playoff games.
Yep.
And he said, he was looking for his, explanation. He said, not giving great effort as a group. Well, how does that figure? I mean, not giving great effort as a group. I mean, that's a stinging indictment of the 49er defense.
Yep.
What do you think, Chase, is going to be the impact of this? Is there going to be a negative impact in that guys are pointing fingers and this becomes a real subplot and gives the Chiefs tons of confidence? Is it going to be a rallying cry for the Niners and suddenly they're going to fire some big defensive effort? What do you think is the actual impact of us noticing the Cadillacing in the NFC title game? What's going to be the impact of that?
Yeah, I think there's a human nature at play here. And I think that this is sometimes the danger of getting that number 1 seed. You have home field advantage, and you think that path is going to be easy. And in the first half, Niners offense came out sluggish. The defense struggled. They got punched in the teeth by Green Bay, and they had to narrowly escape with the victory thanks to Brock Purdy's heroics going 6 of 7. But the theme in that game, defensive adjustments in that second half by Steve Wilks. And then in the NFC Championship game, once again, Niners come in feeling themselves a little bit, and they have to mount a 17-point comeback in that second half, and once again, make some second half adjustments. So I think the human nature kind of sets in a little bit, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're set up pretty. The Cowboys, Eagles are out. Now our path is the 7th-seeded Packers, as well as the Detroit Lions team that hasn't won a road playoff game since the 1950s when they won in the NFC Championship game to make it to the NFL Championship way back in the day, and they hadn't won their division or a playoff game since 1991. This is going to be easy. This is the NFL playoffs. Nothing is easy. And I thought that the Niners rushed showed. I thought the Niners' lack of effort showed because of that. And I think that if you're in that room for the Niners here, they have way too many leaders, way too many premier players. And the standard and the culture of the Niners is as such where let's show that effort to everybody. And let everybody know this is not acceptable here. We are playing for the Super Bowl, and we understand that with the premium capital that we're paying a lot of players on this roster and the age of this team starting to get a little bit older and the prime years of these players and the window shortening just a little bit, they've made it to 3 NFC Championship games, 4 in the last 5 years, 2nd Super Bowl appearance since 2019. That type of effort can be literally the difference in you winning the Super Bowl, which is what we all want, and we've been busting our asses for since OTAs in the spring of last year, and winning or losing the game. That can be the difference right there. And if you expect to be able to start the game slow against a Chiefs offense that has momentum, that has really gotten it together after a pretty mundane season. They've been on fire in the playoffs, and then that defense that is playing well. If you start off slow and you go into an early hole against Kansas City, it's going to be really hard to come back like you did against Green Bay, like you did against the Lions, and the probability of 3 straight massive comebacks is very, very low. So I think for the Niners here, it is a little bit of a rallying cry, and it's a reality check that in order for us to win in Las Vegas on Sunday, and win the Super Bowl and bring back that 6th Lombardi trophy, which ties us with the Pittsburgh Steelers and New England Patriots, we have to play our best A game from minute 1 to minute 60. And that type of effort cannot happen.
One thing that has to happen in this game if the Niners are going to win is the D-line's got to impact Patrick Mahomes and slow down Isaiah Pacheco. You're uniquely qualified to answer this next question because you've been covering the Niners and the Eagles. Mm-hmm. Should Niner fans be disappointed in what they've gotten so far out of Javon Hargrave? Because Hargrave has 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss, 0 hits on the quarterback. He got $40 million guaranteed. The discussion the day that signing happened was, man, the combo of Bosa and Hargrave are going to wreak havoc on quarterbacks. It really has not happened. You've watched the Eagles with Hargrave. You've watched the Eagles without him. You've watched the Niners pre-Hargrave. Now you've seen his impact. Are you disappointed in what he's contributed?
There's a little bit of a trend here, and I think that the sack numbers for all the marquee players on this Niners team are down. And with that, I point to, and I bring up this question, is it the scheme? Is the scheme a little bit different up front as compared to what DeMeco Ryans was running? And before that, what Robert Saleh was running? Because Nick Bosa 2 years ago won Defensive Player of the Year, 18.5 sacks. And this year, he logs 10 sacks. And the sack numbers across the board for San Francisco are down. We just got done talking about Chase Young. His sack numbers down from Washington to San Francisco. And for Hargrave, he had 11 sacks last year. That was a career high for an Eagles team that had 70 as a team. The Baltimore Ravens led the NFL this year in sacks. They only had 60. So last year, Philadelphia really got after the quarterback in an historic way. It was the most sacks in a regular season for a team since the mid-'80s when those great Chicago Bears teams were awesome on the defensive side of the football. His previous career high before that was 7.5. This year, he had 7 in 16 games. I think it's a little bit of a scheme problem. But I'll tell you what, Larry, Niners are going to have to get after the quarterback, and they're going to have to pressure and sack Patrick Mahomes in order to win this football game. And it's not just Hargrave here. This is a team-wide issue where the sack numbers have been a little bit surprising for the lack of sack production on this Niners team this year. When you're paying a guy 4 years, $84 million, you are expecting to get after the quarterback on a more consistent rate. But the Niners really haven't been able to do that all year long. And the guide to beating Patrick Mahomes is out there. And it came in Super Bowl 55 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when the Buccaneers had an aggressive defense. Their defensive line won with 4, but also Todd Bowles at the time, who was the defensive coordinator under Bruce Arians, dialed up a lot of blitzes. And the Chiefs that year were dealing with injuries to left guard, right guard. And this year, Joe Thuney has a potential torn pec. He's an all-pro left guard. He might not play in this game. And teams have rarely been able to execute this game plan against Patrick Mahomes, but it does work when you can actually execute it. Mahomes in Super Bowl 55 dropped back 56 times. He was pressured on 29 of those 56 dropbacks. That's the most for any quarterback in Super Bowl history. He was sacked 3 times and hit 10 times. That is really one of the biggest keys to this game is Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, Chase Young coming to play, and they have the talent to get after the quarterback. Steve Wilks has to dial up some blitzes. I want to continue to see some more twists, stunts, and gains up front because we saw how the Niners were able to be effective against Jared Goff when they put him under pressure, when he was 3 of 13 under pressure for 26 yards, 2 sacks, and a rating of 39.6. You get after Patrick Mahomes, you can win this football game. If he has all day to drop back and chuck it, he's going to carve you up, and yeah, Hargrave's a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa, as you said, kind of provided the blueprint. I mean, they got 3 sacks on Mahomes, but they had 17 pressures and 8 hits on Mahomes' 49 attempts in their 31-9 win. I mean, what do you think? I mean, if you're Wilks, what's the game plan here? I mean, you try to get it done with 4, but if you can't get it done with 4, I mean, the big question I guess I would have is, can the Niners stop Pacheco with 7 in the box, or do they have to add an extra guy and play some man? What do you think the game plan for Wilks is going to be? What do you think is the successful game plan against Mahomes? I mean, the Niners have never beaten Mahomes, and the Chiefs' O-line in the interior is really good. I don't know if Joe Thuney is going to play or not. He's an all-pro player at left guard. They've allowed the second fewest sacks in the league this year in the interior. What's the plan that you think gets it done against Mahomes and company?
Yeah, and one more thing about Hargrave, and I talked about this when the Niners made the signing. He's a very good pass rushing defensive tackle. He has never been good against the run. And so that's an issue, and we've seen it come to light all throughout this year when San Francisco's defense has struggled to bottle up the run game, and then in the playoffs as well when the Packers and Lions have had success on the ground. I think the formula for Steve Wilks in this defense, you see if you can win with 4, and then you mix up your coverages on the back end. You play a little man. You play a little zone. You dial up some blitzes from time to time. You run some of those twist gains and stunts up front to mix up the looks to try to confuse Patrick Mahomes so that he doesn't know what he's seeing. But then when you get to him, you have to make sure that you take him down onto the ground and you sack him, because the pressure isn't going to do it. A quarterback hit isn't going to do it. He's so good at maneuvering inside the pocket, but then he's so strong on that lower half, fast and athletic with really strong legs, where even if you try to wrap him up, he stays on his feet and he can throw to his right. He can throw to his left. And then lastly, he maintains his eye level up, where if you get that pressure on him and he's running around, his receivers do such a good job on the downfield element of this, especially Travis Kelce, where they kind of just freestyle a little bit and they get downfield and they try to find a little gap in the defense where there's some vacant grass, and they go there and Mahomes is able to hit him, and then he can run the football as well. So he really does just pose so many threats, and then he drops the arm angle down to multiple angles. And I know a lot of Niner fans this week have said you can't play zone against Patrick Mahomes because he'll carve you up when you play zone. Well, the Baltimore Ravens last week played a lot of zone, and I thought that the defense for Baltimore played extraordinarily well. They held Kansas City to 17 points. I believe Kansas City didn't score a touchdown after halftime, and to me, it was the Ravens offense that lost the game, not the Ravens defense. So you can play zone, you can play man. You have to get ready for those extracurricular plays to happen once Mahomes is able to break contain. And if the Chiefs are able to establish the run, that's a massive problem, because if you try to stack the box, that's when the Chiefs will kind of spread you out, and then they're going to try to take the top off of the defense, and Mahomes is so good at throwing with touch and accuracy to all three levels of the field. Lastly, against the pass and against the run. We saw this against Green Bay. We saw this against Detroit. The Niners have done an awful job of setting the edge, and that's really allowed them to get exposed through the aerial attack and on the ground. So I think with Pacheco and against Patrick Mahomes, you just have to set the edge. And you can't allow Mahomes to break contain or Pacheco to get out to the perimeter. And then obviously tackling is going to be really important in all phases, and San Francisco has struggled with that all year long. So this is going to be a tall test for sure, even though the Chiefs wide receivers are probably the worst under the Mahomes era.